Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. I know things might look a little off. We had a little camera issue over the weekend, so we're shooting one of these angles from an iPad, so I apologize that the icons are in view. Before we begin, as a reminder, Play Noir is returning. An evening of film noir-styled one-act plays written by playwrights like you from around the world. If you've got a Play Noir one-act play under your belt already, feel free to submit it at info@punkmonkeyproductions.com. Or if you need more information and guidelines, visit www.punkmonkeyproductions.com. And if you want more insight into the genre and what we like and what we usually accept, pick a copy of Play Noir Anthology, 41 film noir-styled written one-act plays from playwrights from around the world. We just received a play from West Asia. So now we have 6 of the 7 continents under our belt. And I know what you're thinking. The last one must be Antarctica. It is not. Believe it or not, we had a play co-written by somebody who was stationed there. So all we're waiting for is a play from Africa. So if you're in Africa and you're watching, be sure to submit a play. My guests today are part of the team of a play that was the winner of the Gold Award at the Lenaea Festival in 2023 in Sacramento, California, and a recipient of the Heart of Lenaea in an honorary form which has never been given twice in one year because of all the obstacles they overcame to put their show together. They were given the opportunity. Well, here they are in studio today. The original episode was with one of the writers who managed to bring it down. They will be playing at the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Their play, A Minor Inconvenience, plays at the Actors Company Other Space Theater, June 8th at 1:30 p.m., June 12th at 5:30 p.m., and June 13th at 7 p.m. Go ahead and scan that QR code. I'm sure it's showing up in there somewhere. Let me double check. Yeah, you can scan that QR code. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome writer Faye Widjaja and Sohoni Sawant. I butchered it, didn't I? Welcome to Hollywood.
Thank you.
Oh, it's so fun.
So we are at the Hollywood Fringe. I kind of want to, people can go back and they can rewatch the episode May 7th, 2023. And here we are just over 2 years and three weeks later by one day. If people want to go back and they want to rewatch the episode or watch the episode if they hadn't caught it yet. Let's talk about some of the obstacles that you guys had to overcome, because there were a lot. There were a lot leading up to it during rehearsals. There were a lot leading up to it before you even got to the show, and then there were problems that you ran into during the show. So let's kind of revisit that to give a little recap to the audience who may not have caught this episode and kind of talk about the journey from there to here.
Yeah, definitely. So Sohoni is one of the original actors in A Minor Inconvenience that went up at the Lenaea Theater Festival for Mission San Jose High School. Woohoo, go Warriors! Which unfortunately at the time did not have a proper theater department. And so it was one of our main passions to keep theater alive and, to keep theater productions working at the high school. And so we went through a lot. We had a lot of outdoor rehearsals pretty late at night since we didn't have a rehearsal space. We didn't have an advisor or any other faculty that were necessarily present during our rehearsals or anyone to advise us. And that continued on in the theater festival itself, of course. But I think we worked hard, we persevered, and we were very fortunate to be able to put on A Minor Inconvenience at the theater festival.
So you rehearsed outside, and we're talking Lenaea's not until February.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so you're outside, and so we're basically post daylight savings time. So it's getting dark pretty early, especially in Central California. What are you doing for lighting?
Oh.
And it's probably cold.
It was definitely
It was
cold.
very
It was
cold.
definitely cold. And you get a little bit of heat back up by running around and doing all the things that I as a director made you do.
Yeah.
We did use a lot of flashlights. I remember bringing out flashlights out and just propping them up on the corner of like our rehearsal space, which was of course like lunch tables. It wasn't necessarily like a proper space. And so we had flashlights out. And I think that also inspired a lot of what we brought into
Sure.
the production itself. We had a section that was all like based on flashlights, and so we're continuing it in our production at the Hollywood Fringe, but we had parts of our show which were like mainly lit by flashlights, and that's also because we couldn't even really comprehend the possibilities of a lighting console or the possibilities of what like a soundboard could do, and so we were really working with what we had, which
Sure,
was
yeah.
small flashlights.
Have all the actors do the lighting on stage.
Right. And all of our speakers just kind of surrounding ourselves.
So were you guys rehearsing on campus, or did you find a place off campus to do this?
Yeah, we were on our high school campus. So pretty late at night. I don't remember the exact hours.
And they had no qualms. They were okay with it. They didn't like give you any grief that you were on campus.
Well, it was an open high school campus, so there were no doors to be closed, so we were outside most of the time.
Okay. Before we get to the Lenaea aspect, when did the grant thing happen? Were you doing that during A Minor Inconvenience, or did that happen after for a different show?
No, it was for a show that we did previously at Lenaea too, which was one of the acts of The Crucible. And so we were very fortunate to talk about our story for the grant and to have them give us a $5,000 grant, which was from the Broadway Licensing. Yeah, from Broadway Licensing, the standing ovation grant. And so we received that, which was a major help in getting this production off the floor, basically, and just having some point, some starting ground, to be able to make this of a production that we more could be involved in and that we could actually have a part in, rather than just something that we were throwing together to get for a competition.
Do you remember what the process was for that? I know it was a while back.
Yeah,
So-
there were instructions online, and basically we put together an essay of our story and why we would need the money and our passion for storytelling and drama. And they went through a bunch of essays and they picked us.
Now, the story I heard, I don't know how true this is that you had to continually go to the principal for different things. So I'm sure those stories are yours. So how did he come into play with this whole thing?
Yeah, so it was definitely hard to get the money for the grant. I don't remember exactly. Do you remember? Because you did also. Sohoni was my vice president at the club, and so we did a lot of back and forth in trying to just access this money.
Yeah, I don't really remember, but I remember I was pulled out of civics class to talk to the principal because we put the school's address to receive the money.
Yes,
And
which is typical.
they didn't know that we applied to this grant, and I guess that was a problem that we were receiving money. I don't really remember.
Yeah, it was an issue trying to access it. I remember, which is also why like if any awards
Yeah.
were ever sent to the school, we'd never really. We assumed that we wouldn't get them if they were ever sent to the school. So we had like the Lenaea, even the Spirit of Lenaea award sent to one of our houses so that we could actually get the award and that our club could keep it.
I think it's also because we didn't have an active advisor. Like, we
Yes.
had an advisor on paper, but he didn't come to any of our rehearsals
Or
and
meetings,
stuff.
yes.
So because the advisor also didn't know about these grants or awards that we were winning, I don't think most of the administration adults were willing to talk to the students directly, and they would have preferred us to go through an advisor.
Yes.
Which you didn't have.
Which we didn't have.
So your club got flagged for being a major inconvenience, I guess.
Definitely, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you get the money, you have no advisor. What was the process of getting to Lenaea?
Ooh, the process of getting to Lenaea was so incredibly difficult. I remember that year. We weren't ever approved to go to Lenaea. We had submitted all the forms, and Sohani and I both went back and forth to the office, and we were saying, like, this is a field trip, this is an educational experience, this is something that our club does every year, which is true. At that point, we had gone.
And you were
4
already
times.
accepted to Lenaea. You just weren't approved to go through the
From
school.
our school.
Yes, we had a program director, one of the faculty from another school, who was very, very kind to let us list him as a program director. And so we had a program director. We had people who were willing to volunteer to be with us, which is what part of the requirements of Lenaea.
And that's former alum.
Former alum,
Yeah.
yes. Not necessarily any faculty, but former alum who, again,
Adults.
who were adults.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, they've graduated. But,
Yes.
and that's, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that had been tradition for probably the last 4 years since your previous advisor had left.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had been to Lenaea multiple times, and we had been approved for the field trip before
Yes.
in the past. And so I think with COVID, they hadn't realized that we had been going, and they perhaps didn't know. And so we approached them relatively early on because, Lenaea takes a while to plan for. You have to register, I think, in October. And so we had told them, we had posted auditions, we were very open with the fact that we were planning to go. And I think it came to maybe a month out where they told us that we were not allowed to go, we were not approved.
Yes. So Lenaea happens on Friday, Saturday,
Exactly.
Sunday.
That's why I'm like trying
Right.
to
So a lot of us just decided to call in sick and go on Friday, and the people that had tests and stuff that weren't approved for this field trip, they had to attend on Friday and commute on Saturday. And we just had to say that this was our own will, that we were all going separately on the weekend, and this
Yes.
is something we were just doing for fun rather than a school organization event.
And a lot of us were seniors. We gladly took the day off. But we also had a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores who needed to be there for the school. And Lenaea was very kind to kind of let us adjust our schedule around and for us to be like, hey, here are the people who are not available on Friday. If you can put them on a Saturday, if you can put them early in the morning on Sunday, please let it happen, just because we were never approved.
And that's when you guys perform at 8:30 on a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We performed very early on a
Very early.
Sunday because a lot of our cast members had to leave to go back to school on Monday since we were never approved.
Right. Okay. And then, so at that point, you guys are pretty much checking out of your hotel, and that's when the obstacles started to occur. The more immediate obstacles.
Definitely. Yeah. So many of our props never made it onto the stage.
Yes, we had a 15-minute load-in time.
Yes,
I believe,
which is relatively
which is
typical.
normal.
Which is what you guys are going to get for
the
Hollywood Fringe, yeah.
And for the Hollywood Fringe, we will have a very experienced stage manager who will
Yes.
train us on that, and so very happy. But for Lenaea, we had a little less experience.
Yes,
I'd
we
say.
also had a few alum who had stayed up all night at the hotel to make a set to hold up our clock centerpiece, which also never
made it on stage.
Yes.
We had a couple other things not make it on stage. A drum.
Like the clock.
The
didn't
clock
make it
never
on
made it
stage.
on stage.
Yeah.
Yes, and so a lot of our props just like never even made it. I remember one of the alum was literally running into the venue saying, "I have the clock right now in my hands," and we had to go on. And
Yes.
I don't know if I knew that part.
Yeah.
yeah,
They
she watched the show. She was
Yeah.
able to make it in to watch the show, and she just had the clock at her feet.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
so. But
We thought quick on our feet.
we adjusted. One of our actors was very smart. We took out a music stand. We put up a 60-minute timer that we found on YouTube.
Just put it on Do Not Disturb and no more auto turn off.
Yes. We missed the very iconic like beeping at the end of the show, which is very great. And of course, we had to have one of our cast members actually press the go, because we couldn't have that done off stage.
Or the drum.
And the drum was an Amazon box.
I remember.
I always talk about this to people, and I think it's like just one of the ways that we just say, the show goes on. And
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to say wasn't just an Amazon box. It was a 4, maybe 5-inch deep Amazon box that
Cardboard
continued
just open.
that continued to collapse under the beat of the drum.
Yes.
And the drum, correct me if I'm wrong, the drum that didn't make it was a drum that you could sit on and play.
yes.
So this person is stomping her feet and playing the drum, probably having an aching back afterwards.
Yes.
But
Definitely.
kept that. How long was that beat supposed to go?
It was a long song.
Yeah.
It was it was 2 songs
Yeah,
too.
the whole songs relied on that beat because they were a cappella songs.
Right.
And so we had to have a drum. And it wasn't even our cardboard box that we brought in, it was some random empty box that was in the backstage.
Right. It was some
Area.
some other production just left it behind,
Yeah.
which we're grateful for because it made us have something.
Yeah.
But
They probably came back and they found the box and somebody
Someone
busted our
crushed it.
drum.
Yeah,
we
I
were
mean-
planning to drum it as well.
yeah, shout out to Lucy, right? Shout out to Lucy. She really kept it together there. It was actually really amazing to watch. I was like, you practiced on this drum. You had something planned. You were used to this drum, and you got up and you adjusted. And kudos for that.
Yeah, very much so. All right, so you won gold. You got this honorary Heart of Lenaea, which was amazing, and I'm happy that it happened. You didn't make it because that was one of the things I suggested. I might do Hollywood Fringe. You were going to do it the following year, didn't make it, and now here we are.
Here we are.
So let's talk about the journey from Fremont to Hollywood.
Yes, I go to college in New York City at Pace. And
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I now go to school at UCLA, the School of Theater,
right.
Film, and Television over there. And
Yeah.
so we really attempted. We made a hard, strong go at trying to go in 2023 to Hollywood. And you can actually see that, like, when you look at the project page, the numbers are still very
It
low.
says we're Hollywood Fringe veterans.
Yeah,
but we
no,
haven't
I don't think it
looked.
does. No, it
Okay.
doesn't. Because we never got to register. But we had talked about it. We got a new cast. We had basically an almost entirely new team that was planning to go. And I think for some reason, it just wasn't possible.
Yeah, I think it also fell apart because a lot of our cast was graduating high school
Right.
seniors.
Yeah, okay.
And so it was like their last summer with their family, and their families wanted to take them somewhere and spend time with them, which is understandable.
Which is definitely understandable, but didn't make it. We didn't try last year because at that point we were kind of like, oh, I don't think it'll work. I don't think it.
No,
'cause
we started writing the application.
we started writing the application.
for the scholarship, but the due date was in like one day when we started.
Right,
writing
we
the
we had
scholarship.
forgotten completely about
Yeah.
it until we were like, oh yeah, and then this year we made a pretty real attempt. We had it all planned out.
Yeah, Faye had called me and she was like, if we don't win the scholarship, we're not going to do it. It's okay.
I know it definitely was surprising, and that's what I did say. I mean, I was like, if we don't win the scholarship, we won't do it. Maybe another year, just because we were both already so busy.
Yeah.
And we were like, but at this point, I think it's worth it
Yeah,
to
I
try
think-
and push through.
I think in the back of our minds, we didn't think that we were ever going to win
We
scholarships.
never
So we were
thought.
like, oh, the summer, it's probably not going to happen. Maybe a different year. We can try once, see what happens.
So what was that process like? What was the process of applying for? And we haven't really revealed whether or not. Well, you're here, so I guess it hasn't been revealed. We didn't really say it. So what was the process like, and what did you have to go through with that? And which was easier between the two, between the grant from Broadway Licensing and your award from Fringe?
Yeah, so I'd say the Hollywood Fringe scholarship was perhaps a little less easy
Yeah.
than the standing ovation grant.
For the standing ovation grant,
We had a whole
was-
team.
Yes, and it was one essay, one prompt, and it was basically just our backstories. Whereas this Hollywood Fringe scholarship,
we were telling a new story. We had to
Yes.
say, what do we want to achieve? What are our goals? What are our dreams with this production? And it was something that we had discussed and something that we had thought about, of course, but it was never something that we had put pen to paper about.
and we had also discussed that we would want to change it up from the previous production a bit. Like we added a completely different plot to it, but the themes are the same at heart. So the questions about the new production, we had to think those all out to apply for the Hollywood Fringe School.
Had those changes already been made? And I don't want to discuss what they are yet. We'll get to those definitely. But had the changes already been written, or was it just like, what are we going to do? What are we going to write? How are we going to approach this?
No, I mean, we never expected to win. And so I had gone, I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not going to write it until we win. And then we'll win, and then I'll figure it out. You know, maybe not the best idea, but we never expected to win.
We had like a baseline idea concept, but then after we won, we tried to start actually working on what it could be.
I desperately put out a call for a co-writer. And so we've been working really hard at getting those changes in and getting them locked in.
So for somebody who's already seen it, how much of it am I going to recognize, and how much of it am I going to notice with, oh, wow, that's totally different?
Oh, I think from the first minute. From the first minute, you're going to notice.
Maybe you'll recognize 10%.
Oh, no, I think...
Okay. I think you'll recognize a lot of it, but a lot of it has been added on to. So
Right.
it is different. Everything is different, but there's still some of the same similarities.
Is there still a countdown?
Yes.
Yes.
Still an hour?
Still an hour. Well,
The
last
original
time
was
was 30
30
minutes.
See, that's what I thought. But you said we set the timer for an hour, and I'm like, I don't remember it being
Oh,
an hour-long
oops.
show.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm like, I thought, oh, wow.
No, it was 30 minutes, right. To match perfectly for the Lenaea guidelines.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I can't remember because I don't. That's not my forte in that arena. For as far as Lenaea goes, I don't know what the guidelines are as far as the limitations go. So they limit you to 30.
Yes, I think it was 40 minutes.
Okay.
And so we had us stuck on 30 because we knew, we had an idea that things would go right and things would go wrong.
Yes.
And so we gave ourselves a little buffer time.
Are you just what are actually better yet for both of you, especially definitely for this production? What are your guys' roles as far as this overall team goes this go around?
Right. Okay, so I'm the primary producer for the actual production at the Hollywood Fringe, and then I am the writer, primarily for the musical side, but my co-writer and I work together, and so I do the music and the lyrics for the show, and I'm also directing the show.
Yes, and I'm starring in it as
Again.
Again, reprising her role.
reprising my role, but the role is a little bit different. And I also do the social media and publicity.
Okay. All right. So now I have a question because I felt really bad because I was relooking at the postcard and I'm like, oh my God, there was a co-writer last year with the original and I never brought her on. Okay, so all right, since with the changes you brought in the co-writer.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that dynamic worked and that collaboration and how you guys went through the original and decided what you wanted to keep and what you didn't. And then how maybe what you wrote for the scholarship came into play.
Yeah, so I mean, everything that we wrote into the scholarship became kind of our outline for the show. We needed to be true to what we were going to do. And of course, it is something that we believed in with the words that we wrote for the scholarship. And so it became the outline. As soon as I brought Cerulean on, we had talked about what was written for the scholarship process. And then also I gave her the original draft of the show, kind of some of the music. I showed her what we had worked on in the past and a lot of the main themes that I wanted to continue on. And so I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but this show is very interesting to write because it is a timed show. And so we did the thing again where we write it from backwards and forwards a little. So we write it from the front end and the back end, and we try to meet in the middle so that whatever time needs to be subtracted or needs to be added can kind of be put right in the middle.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you couldn't fully complete writing it until after we've done a few rehearsals so you can time out our scenes and see how much was left to be written.
Right.
How much, especially from, well, I mean, from both your angles, but especially for you, how much do you have to be spot on with timing? Like you can't, your rhythm's got to be, that cadence has to be exact every single time, or else you can be off by a second or 5 to 10 seconds even.
Yeah, it has to be completely timed out. It's why we rehearse over and over and over again, because the scenes in the middle that are not played to music, those are the ones that are harder to time out because they don't have any backing track to like keep track of. So whether or not you've finished the scene, the music will start playing to keep you back in track. So you have to be perfectly timed out so that you can finish your scene and be properly on time.
Do you get any kind of like intro measures to just, if I'm still delivering that line, I know I've still got, 4 measures of 8 still to get that out?
Yeah.
That's something that's always really important to me. As I'm writing the music, I'm like, I have to put in some buffer time. So we will fade it in, we will play the song, but at least you know that you have however many measures to complete whatever you're talking about.
Yes. It's like when they start playing the music to get you off the stage when in the Oscar speech.
From an acting point of view, has there been a struggle not that there was a struggle last time, but are you finding there's obstacles that you have to overcome in this? Is it so different? Do you find yourself going back to the other one? Or are you still, because I'm imagine you started rehearsing already.
Yes. So it's a little hard because the original version is so ingrained in my head that I've listened to the original music so many times, and now we have additional harmonies and I'm singing different parts than I used to sing for those. And also it's an added challenge because now I have acting training a little bit, and previously I didn't. So it's sort of rewiring my brain to actually create a completely different character than it was in the beginning.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. I feel the same way with everything, with the writing, with the directing. Now that we've had a little bit more theater experience and theater training in a way that's not just trying to get a production off the ground, I feel that it's a completely different experience. And it's so interesting going back to this work that I had written so long ago and seeing it with new eyes and seeing what we can change about it and what really stays the same.
Is it new music as well, or did you just use the original music and then just change the lyrics to go along with?
There are some songs that we've kept in there. There's a lot of songs that have stayed. Mm-hmm. I think the majority of the songs have made it back in. And of course there is new music, a lot of the instrumentals. It is so amazing to be in college with such passionate, talented individuals, because you meet these people who can do crazy things in hours.
And you realize you don't have to do everything yourself.
Exactly, which is actually amazing. And I've started this process of being able to give musicians and singers like, oh, here's the outline. Here's what I need from you, and they're able to fill it in without too much of like of notes.
Instruction.
Yeah, instruction. And so some music has been changed. Some music is just now fuller.
Yeah,
with
it is
additions.
twice as long.
And it is twice as long now too.
So you actually use some of the musicians from UCLA to record the new music.
Yes, one of my sound designers, my sound designer actually, she's off recording, I think guitar with our guitarist, and so she's like sending me updates and she's sending me all these new things, and it genuinely does amaze me, and I think it also impresses the actors because they see the very limited kind of what we had in high school version of these songs first, and then they're able to see it with almost basically a full band.
Our entire production, I think, are all college students.
No, we have a couple people who are not. Yeah.
Most of our production are college students.
I know the journey's still going on, but do you? And I know that you'll always have a special place for your heart with the original. So are you finding that you're liking this version a lot better, or you just can't compare the two. It's like, having two children and you don't love one more than the other.
I personally, and it's so sad to say, but even the first production, I was not in love with it. I was very much not satisfied with it, and I thought it was. I said this to a lot of people, but it surprised me that it won, like the first time that it went up, because it was this like very compelling idea I had about the clock ticking down, the countdown. But I didn't think the execution was all that strong, and I didn't think it was like the best of the abilities. And so this rendition, this version, I feel so much more proud of.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we didn't have the resources or the people
Or the time.
or the time. Yeah, time. Or the capability to actually flush out what you
Right.
had in your brain. And now that you have all of these things, your vision is actually able to come to life.
And so I don't see them as like entirely two separate productions or even like two separate renditions. I see them as like both of them informing each other. And there's like a lot of things where I kept from the original production where I'm like, this was very strong and this was absolutely like very beautiful on stage.
It was a workshop in a way. You
Yes.
could see who reacted to what in what way.
And we're also kind of seeing this one as another workshop. And so I can see like after this production, it once again just changing and not necessarily being a different story, but just expanding on itself and being better every time.
Yeah.
Okay. What we talked about the scholarship aspect, but what was the process of just once you knew what were the next steps as far as joining Fringe in that process?
Oh yeah, it was genuinely such a surprise. I think we were not prepared for it at all. I mean,
She called me and she was like, "Are we actually doing this? What's going
yes,
on?"
I called and I was like, oh, it's happening, because Sohani at that point was in New York, and so
I
didn't
had no plans to
no
come.
no plans at all. And I had kept the option open, but I never really thought again that it would happen. And so it really became so now this actually has to happen. And I think that's always how it is, where it's like there's a reason that really pushes you forward and compels you forward.
Yes.
How was the process on your end? I feel like I really was like, you do all the work right now.
Yeah, I was really excited for it to happen, but on my end there was a lot of scheduling that had to go on. I had to book flights, I had to have a ride up here, and I stayed in your dorm for a good while until I found another place to live in. And so it was just a lot of moving around, but I knew if this production was going to go up again, I had to be in it.
So, do you put in an application to perform your piece before you get the scholarship? And then if you got the scholarship, if you didn't get the scholarship, it was like, hey, we're pulling our play? Or did you wait until you won the scholarship before you entered the piece in the Fringe?
So to receive the scholarship, you have to create a project page that basically says like what your whole project is about. And then when you receive the scholarship, or if you receive the scholarship, they comp your registration, and so you're automatically registered into the Fringe Festival, and then we receive the award amount for the venue, and then we had to start looking for venues. That was the major thing that we immediately started looking at, were these different venues, and we started emailing, and it was so interesting because we felt like we had so much time, and we were like, oh.
And this is when at this point?
Oh my gosh, this is March.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
We were
March.
like, we have so much time to peruse, look at different venues.
Right. And then suddenly it was like the week before the printed guide confirmation, I think, was like, you had to have your
Faye
venue.
was calling me. I was in New York, and she was like, all the venues are taken. No one's responding back to us.
Right. Because even with the scholarship, venues are still expensive.
And a lot of people had registered before the scholarships were
Right.
announced and booked their venues already.
Yes, we didn't know this, but people book their venues a year in advance.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting to get to talk to venues and be like, what times do you have available? And of course, working with people who live on a campus which has a determined move out date, it was very hard to find a venue that was flexible in that sort of way where we were like, we can't stay for the whole Fringe. Like a lot of people do not live in this town and are only here to study. And so we said we have to have one date in the preview week and we have to have 2 dates between. When does the Fringe open? It's the 10th, perhaps?
Yeah.
I think it's the 10th.
We said we have to be out by the 14th.
We have to be out by the 14th. It has to happen, or we will not be able to perform.
So, what kind of just this again? We haven't really talked much about Fringe on the show. I think we've kind of done a little bit, but we haven't really talked about the process and whatnot, which I think is really important, especially for anybody that might be listening out of town who might want to come and do it, because I know that there's people that do that. What kind of ranges were you guys getting as far as like, spaces were concerned?
Yeah, I mean, there were spaces that had literally like just a few seats. It was small venues, and then we had much larger venues.
What were they charging? What were they looking at?
They were charging. What was our scholarship? I don't remember. But it was. I know it's been a while.
Yeah. I think it covered half.
It was about half.
Okay.
Which was really interesting to me because I kind of assumed that the scholarship fund would cover most of it, and we still had to pay
We had
about
to do
half.
a GoFundMe.
Yes, we did. I think we received 750.
Yeah.
Yes, it was 750. So we paid about double that for 3 nights, and then that was with I think only a 2-hour tech. And so
Yeah.
we didn't really have, and of course there's insurance to go on top of that.
Yes.
But we were getting pretty high numbers. I remember,
Yeah.
definitely things that were over more than the half, and then
Like,
again,
what was the cheapest that you were getting? Were you getting like a $400 night or
No.
okay, yeah, right.
yeah, we were not getting anything too cheap, and of course, like that also comes with how picky we are, right? I'm sure that some of the smaller venues maybe would have had cheaper options, but just due to the nature of the show, with like it being timed, and of course like the ambition of our designers at that point, we wanted to make sure that they had something to work with,
Yeah.
something that they could actually play with, and we also knew that this was a musical that had a cast,
Sure.
like a larger ensemble cast. It wasn't a solo show or a 2-person show. We had musical numbers that we needed space for, and so. I mean, even the Actors Company, they were like, we have this smaller venue. How many people are in your cast? And we were like, maybe we'll have around like 4 to 6.
yeah.
And they were like, oh, no, you can't do it in there. You're going to have to book the larger one. Because literally, it's like you can't fit the people onto that stage.
Wow. I don't know. I get this suspicion that because it's Fringe, theaters have a tendency to up their rates.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I mean, I know that it's a lot of venues. There's a lot of venues have closed since COVID. I mean, the complexes, which used to be on Cohort and Santa Monica, they had so many spaces and so many options, but I mean, they closed. I don't think they're very open. I know they were trying to get historical landmark status, and the congressperson that was supposed to help them with that, unfortunately, didn't get reelected. So I don't know what the update is with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Actors Company, I think, was very kind to us, especially since we were coming in very late. I remember on the call, I was like, I know that this is due in literally a week, but if you have any space for us at
They
any
were
time.
very good at communicating.
They were
with us.
they were very good at communicating, and I think we gave them a little bit more. Actually, we were like, we would love to be out by the 13th because that's the day that people's housing ends. But if you need us to go to the 14th, if you need us to go to even the 15th, we'll make do with it. But we would love to be out by the 13th. And they did this really amazing thing where they accept people's registrations and they accept people's they guarantee oh, you will have a performance time, but they book everyone's slots at the same time. So they get to see the full picture of when do people have to go, when do people want to go. And we got very lucky with them.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful
I'm
that
very happy with their.
I know
showtimes.
I think our times are really great.
Good. So what was it like to have an actual 2-hour tech? Or you haven't had that yet,
We
have
haven't
you?
had it yet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. So our stage manager came in. She's so amazing. She said, "Hey, I will deal with everything. You just come in. You focus on blocking." She said, "I think we need an additional rehearsal in the space. I will contact Actors Company. I will set it up. I will find the time. You just show up and you focus on what you need to focus on." And then she sent me a message that was like, "Hey, it's booked. Please send the money." And I was like, "Okay."
Okay,
Yeah.
so they do charge for rehearsal as well.
They do charge for rehearsals as well. And I think she also managed to secure an extra hour for tech with us. So we're going to have a 3-hour tech, which will be interesting. Our lighting designer and both the lighting and sound designers are very ambitious. I know that our lighting designer wants to bring in a hazer. So we'll see how that goes,
nice.
right? 15-minute load in, see how fast that hazer gets pulled in and out. And then our sound designer is working very hard too. So hopefully the tech will go well. I have a feeling that it will, but of course, knock on wood.
And when is tech?
Our tech is Tuesday. It's pretty soon.
I'm really excited.
Okay.
Yeah, after being in this space, I think it made things a lot more real, but it also made things a lot more manageable.
Yeah,
I think we got to
We knew
see.
how much space we had. We knew how much running laps we could do in there.
Right. And then, I mean, by the time that we were booking a venue, it was so late that we didn't even have time to look at the venue, really.
Yeah.
So we were booking things blind. We were like, I literally, the manager over at Actors Company was like, "Do you want to come in for a tour?" And I was like, "Well, I have class at the times that you're offering. I don't really have time for this. It's hard for me to get over to Hollywood. At this point, it's too late. I really trust you," because they were very kind and they did tell me a lot of information. And so I was like, "I trust you. I think that it'll be fine. Book it. I will pay the deposit and we will look at the venue later." And it worked out.
Were you rehearsing outside of the venue, like, over at the school or something like that? Because did you have rooms over there that allowed you that, or were you finding other places too? Or can you not answer that?
A little bit half and half. Of course it's very classic. It's like a very student group. And so we are finding places to rehearse, whether that's outdoors or again, which we kind of are like, it's kind of in the spirit of the show at this point.
It's part of the show.
It's part of the show, or finding rooms, and of course, like the theater buildings that have not been reserved and are open to use. The theater is very kind to be like, "Oh, if there's a space that's not being used, theater students are free to use it,
Right.
if it's not for class or if you don't have a reservation." But of course, sometimes people come in and are like, "Hey, I have a reservation."
And then we have to all move.
We all have to move, the entire group. We have to take all of our props and we move to a different location. But we try to book our spaces as much as we can. But of course, there's still a little bit of running around. And we're not like an official student theater group over at UCLA.
Sure.
And so it's a little bit self-reliant.
Okay. Well, it's exciting.
It's so exciting.
Any other tidbits you need to share about this whole journey before I move on to some other questions that have nothing to do with the show?
Oh.
You have anything?
Can we just talk about the spirit of the show?
Yes, of course we can.
Yeah, so A Minor Inconvenience, I think, is very personal to us and most people in the cast and crew because it's an Asian story, but it is an Asian story in the way that it's all encompassing of all Asian identities, all children of immigrants, and anyone can relate to it. It's just a mother-child story. And it's a coming-of-age story, so everyone's come of age. So everyone's going through that experience or has gone through that experience. And I think since it's very personal to us, we are really, really connected to this piece and it's very collaborative, this show. So when you were writing it, you asked a lot of the actors' inputs and the designers' inputs because you know that it's personal to all of us. And we all kind of came together to create this piece.
Yeah, and I think that's something that really came over from the past production and also like people's feedback towards it. Just in the way that people can relate to the story and understand the story, even if we feel that it is so personal. And so we're trying to keep those like universal feelings there in the heart of the show. And but of course, like keeping all of our collaboration and bringing in everyone's personal identities and experiences and contributions into the show.
Yeah.
Well, since honey, you brought it up, what? Because it was very, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, because I'm a fan of simplicity. It was a very simplistic setup originally, and how has that changed from design, from what it was then and what it is now? Is it a little bit more complex? Is the simplicity still a part of it?
Oh, it's pretty simple
It's
still.
pretty simple. We just underlaid some sort of backstory and more of a guideline to go by.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it overlays into the design and all of that. Like at its heart, it really is a simple show. And I think that's also what kind of makes it very fun and interesting to work on, is it has so much possibility. And so I think, a lot of it is stayed simple, but we kind of see that designers had a little bit more liberty with it, with like a stronger outline. They had more to work off of.
I also think for the actors, we have a lot of liberty with this simple story, especially because coming of age is, it's very
Universal.
and there's a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions that people go through during coming of age. There's a lot of this violence that kids nowadays feel like in this society, this anger of trying to find your identity in this society, and we're trying to relate it to how confused in that anger someone might feel in the previous generation, and how even though people have generational differences, we're all united by just trying to find ourselves, and that has stayed through time.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the strengths of A Minor Inconvenience lies in its simplicity. And, even at Lenaea, where you don't have that much time, where you have to literally like program your cues almost like right there, our designers were still very ambitious, I think. I remember the night before our show on Lenaea, the lighting designer, I think she stayed up and she went through the script, and she had talked to the programmers at Lenaea the day before to look at the console and to kind of think of the possibilities. And she went through the script and she put in everything that she wanted to do the night before we opened. And we opened at 8:30 a.m. And so, I think there is a lot of simplicity in the original production and in this production. But again, like ambition really carries it through and gives us more of that complexity.
Tell me about the marketing approach that you're taking, and what is it, and how has it been, how has it benefited?
Yes, so I am a huge talker, so I have gone to mixers and basically just connected with people, talked to people about their shows, interested in all of those Hollywood Fringe shows as well, and just basically, I find that if you're passionate and you're talking about something that you are really interested in, the person who is listening to you will be interested in it as well. We are doing a lot of social media. We're going to do incentives. And I've been going around door to door at establishments like tea places and restaurants. And we've been putting up posters around there, around even South Pasadena and around Sawtelle areas, around with a lot of theaters, just anywhere we think that we could get an audience.
Sure.
Especially in Sawtelle, there's a lot of Asian restaurants and a lot of establishments like that. So I feel like people would be drawn to an Asian musical there.
All right, I like it. What are you guys working on now? Whether that's in your college work, in your studies, are you still writing? Are you focusing on performing? Where's this journey going?
Yeah, I mean, in college, I kind of took a left turn. I was one of the sound designers on our productions and our department. We were the only undergrad designers to be working on that show, which was really interesting. But, I've also continued to write. I had another original musical go up at the Bruin Fringe Fest, a more fun musical, another 30-minute one. And, as always, we were pushing the time limit with that one too. It was interesting. It was about the birds, the scooters, the electric scooters that you find all over LA.
Yep.
Really inspired us with that one.
Yeah,
And-
she would send me voice memos while I'm in class, and I didn't know what a bird scooter was because we didn't have those.
But it really was catered towards an LA audience. But still writing, still making a lot of music, a lot more than I expected. Actually, I feel that it was really interesting because I always felt that I kind of wrote music for this show came about just because we didn't have money to buy a license for another show, and so it never really came out of any sort of like personal desire to show off writing or anything like that. It really came out like the need to have a show to perform, and so I never thought that it would be something that I continued working on, but I think that it really is such an enjoyable and such a fun experience, and for the musical,
Yeah.
very fun.
I'm getting a BFA in acting at Pace University, and so I really wanted to continue on that journey. But I think with Universal Performers and doing this at Lenaea in an original production, I have started wanting to create my own stuff as well.
Good for you.
So I started writing a lot as well now. I would call myself a writer now. I started a film production company with my roommate in freshman year, which is really cool. And we started looking into more of that film aspect where I'd just done theater before.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely continued with the more experimental or maybe out of the ordinary, unconventional theater aspects. I think that a lot of the things I work on are very innovative, and I think that what I love so much about A Minor Inconvenience is that it's a relatively traditional musical, but it had this very interesting aspect of the countdown of time that made it a challenge, made it difficult to work on, made it difficult to write, made it difficult to direct. And so I think definitely that stays with all the work that I do, whether it's directing or designing or writing. That's a pretty consistent through line in all my work.
I think you've rubbed off on me in that way, because now whatever I write, it's pushing my limits of what I can do. I'm I just want to try out this part and then write a whole film surrounding that element of production. So
Awesome. I like it. I know it's still early in careers, but where can people find your work?
There's many places. The musical that I worked on earlier in the fall, it should have an album dropping soon, and so hopefully that will come out soon. I don't think it's out currently.
What's it called again?
It's called Bird the Musical. I hope that we can call it Bird the Musical.
copyright.
Maybe. It doesn't really have too much to do about the scooters, actually. It really was just the basis, the jumping point for it. But it should be coming out hopefully sometime in the summer. And of course, A Minor Inconvenience has its own Instagram, which is
at A Minor Inconvenience Musical. Very long, I know.
Yes, and so you should be able to find our Hollywood Fringe page. We also have a GoFundMe page up. And
A whole link tree.
Yes. And hopefully we'll get the chance to record this one. I'm not too sure if we will, but hopefully we will.
If you want to check out my films, my film production company Instagram is at Sourless Pictures.
Is that spelled S-A-U-E-R?
No, sour like lemons.
I'll explain that joke later for those of you that don't know. All right, and the other thing, outside of those two socials, are either of you on the socials?
Yes.
Oh, of course. You can find me on Instagram at Faye Widjaja, Faye Widjaja.
And I just learned I've been pronouncing that name wrong for Widjaja. I botched that.
For years and years. Yes, my Instagram is at Sohoni Sawant, SOHANI SAWANT.
And you can catch both of these ladies and the rest of the team at A Minor Inconvenience at the Actors Company Other Space Theater, June 8th at 1:30 p.m., June 12th at 5:30 p.m., and June 13th at 7 p.m. I will be there June 8th, so come join me. Have some fun. Ticket link, there you go. I'm sure it's on the camera. I'm going to trust myself. Blocking my own face to do it. Ladies, Faye, Sohoni, thanks for coming on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Thank you for tuning in on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, until we see each other again, keep writing.